Kaleidoscope, a weekly public affairs program brought to you in partnership with the Urban League of Greater Cleveland, Kaleidoscope Magazine, and News Channel 5.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the broadcast today. Women and Spirit Catholic Sisters in America is a new exhibit at the Maltz Museum of Jewish Heritage. The executive director, Judy Feniger of the Maltz Museum, and Sister Maureen Grady of the Ursuline Sisters of Cleveland will be here. They're going to share with us their thoughts on all of this. Then later on today, Dr. Lauren Anke and Jason Hanley will talk about the many educational programs at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum. Good morning. We've got quite a broadcast for you today. You're going to find this very, very interesting. My name is Leon Bibb. This is Kaleidoscope, and so we begin. We begin right today with Judy Feniger sitting next to me. She's the executive director of the Maltz Museum of Jewish Heritage of Cleveland, and it's located in Beechwood, and Sister Maureen Grady of the Ursuline Sisters of Cleveland.
Morning.
Good to have you both on the broadcast.
Morning.
But we're going to be talking about something specific today, and it's the Women and Spirit Catholic Sisters in America. And before we begin our interview, I want to roll this piece of tape so you get an idea of where we're going to go. The control room will roll that tape.
The goal of the exhibit is to share the contributions of Catholic sisters
to the history of the United States.
It's a life that is often a source of mystery and intrigue for people.
I would like the stereotypes blown apart.
The role of sisters in national crises and wars and epidemics.
You'll see the story of a woman who talked down Billy the Kid.
I'm a sister. I should know this information. And there's so much that I have learned.
So there you go. That's what we're going to be talking about today, right, Judy?
It is.
Right, Sister Maureen?
Right.
Yeah. First off, let me add, now, this is being held, it's about the Catholic Sisters, but it's in the Maltz Museum of Jewish Heritage.
It is.
Help me with this now.
It's perfect, Leon. You know that.
I know it well. You tell me how it's perfect.
We do so much with interreligious activities, with diversity and tolerance, and when we were approached about a year ago, somebody with a crazy idea to bring a show about Catholic sisters to a Jewish museum, and it was actually someone from Sisters of Charity Foundation here in town who had seen the show when it opened in Cincinnati and said, we have to bring it here and we have to do it together, and she was right, and we did.
And here we are. It's running right now, runs until August the 28th. Sister Maureen Grady of the Ursuline Sisters of Cleveland, tell us your thoughts about this. Why you see this as important to study the role of the Catholic sisters in America.
This is a wonderful opportunity for people to see in one place at one time an amazing story of what Catholics have done in the country. People generally know that sisters have served in Catholic schools and hospitals in the country, but at the Maltz Museum in the Women in Spirit exhibit, we can see sisters who made contributions in science, in government, in inventions, and just looking and listening to their stories, we see the leadership that sisters have exhibited since the 18th century when they came to the country.
And while we got you talking, I know there's a local connection too. There are a lot of local names in this exhibit.
Actually, there are. Let me start with Ursuline Sister Dorothy Kazel, who was one of the sisters serving in El Salvador, who unfortunately was murdered along with 3 others during the Civil War there. There is a last letter of hers that she is expressing why she wants to stay and asking a friend to explain it for her if that day comes.
So there are some local names involved. Now, Judy, this is vital to you to get people to come to the museum, but it's not only Jewish heritage. You're stretching out a little bit. What is it you want people to learn as they come to the Maltz Museum of Jewish Heritage?
Well, I think one thing with this exhibition that's so interesting is just the stories. It's a history exhibition. It's certainly women's studies and women's empowerment. It's about social justice and all the things we talk about. And I'd like people to learn the same thing we always preach, which is that we're all more alike than we're different. And that our stories are maybe different in circumstance, but they're the same in values and in spirit. We all came to America as immigrants, and our families came to build something new and bigger and better, and this Catholic sisters were at every twist and turn of that building.
Let's tell everybody where you're located. The Maltz Museum of Jewish Heritage is at 2929 Richmond Road, which is in Beechwood. 2929 Richmond Road in the community of Beechwood. Let me put a phone number on the screen. As you see, 593-0575, or you can go to maltzmuseum.org for more information. Sister, you and I were chatting just a little bit. I've got a few seconds remaining. Are there misconceptions about individuals who have become Catholic sisters?
I think there's misconceptions that sisters did not take on leadership roles. For example, in the whole area of social justice and peace, you'll see in the exhibit sisters who have begun to say, this is where our voice has to be heard now. There are sisters who have worked side by side in the medical profession. For example, Sister Ignatia, that many people know from St. Thomas Hospital in Akron and Charity Hospital here in Cleveland, who worked with Dr. Bob and Bill W. in making alcoholism seen in a whole different light. Her work as an administrator at that hospital helped with that. Just how sisters are where the needs are, and they're versatile and they're flexible. And these are the stories and the photos that I think people will learn in Women in Spirit, and they will find inspiration for their lives as they see these stories.
And Judy, if people come up to the Maltz Museum of Jewish Heritage, they will find not only the story that Sister Maureen Grady is talking about, they will find stories, all kinds of stories, inside the Jewish heritage.
Yes, so we have our two other collections, and everybody we encourage to see both this national touring exhibition and everything we have.
It is a wonderful, wonderful museum. I've been there several times. Just a wonderful place. 2929 Richmond Road, the Maltz Museum of Jewish Heritage, and you will learn, and they've got the new exhibit, which is called Women in Spirit, Catholic Sisters in America. And Sister Maureen Grady, so vital in bringing this to the Cleveland area. We appreciate your being on the broadcast talking about it. And appreciate having you on the broadcast as well, Judy.
Leon.
Okay.
Thank you.
2929 Richmond Road is where you want to go, to the Maltz Museum of Jewish Heritage. Thank you, ladies, for being on the broadcast. I've got to take a break. We'll return in a moment. We're going to talk about rock and roll. Now that we got it rocking, let's let it roll, as somebody once said. Back in a moment. Welcome back to Kaleidoscope. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum offers a number of programs to the public. Its Vice President of Education and Public Programs, Dr. Lauren Onke, and Director of Education, Jason Hanley, are here to talk about the programs. Good to have you with us, Lauren.
Great to be here.
And Jason. I've worked with them before. Wonderful people from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Thank you, man.
Things are going well at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, located at East 9th Street and Lake Erie, right?
They sure are. Attendance has been terrific the last year or so, and our programs are booming in education.
If memory serves me correct, Jason, we are about our 15th year, right?
Yeah, that's right. Been on the lakefront there for 15 years now, and the foundation itself celebrated 25 years just this past year. So we've been here for quite a while.
And the world knows that we are here.
That's right.
Rocking and rolling. I mean, when I get over there, I see so many people from out of town, and that's the goal, is to get those out-of-towners here, spend some money in Cleveland, and learn all about rock and roll.
And that's what our charge is to really educate the world about the importance of this music. But we also want people in Cleveland to know kind of what they can experience at the museum, too. So it's always great to get that mix of local and international.
As the Vice President of Education and Public Programs, what's the focus that you try to put on when we look at Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum?
Well, everything that kind of falls under education and public programs is our K-12 programs for school kids, both here and around the country, and all the programs for the general public. So we really see philosophically both what we would do with a ninth grader and an interview with an artist for the general public. They all fall under that idea of trying to tell the story of the music and show how much it reflects about our culture and what a crucial art form it is for us to learn about.
Yeah. I want to ask Jason, you're the Director of Education. This is vital to keep this culture going and talk about the history of this music. How does that fit into your mindset, what you want to do with it?
Well, that's the amazing thing, Leon, is that, you know, the rock and roll itself, we're talking over 50 years at this point, and to be able to think about the music that we listen to today and look at the history of it, where it came from, how it started, the musicians who have been part of it, and to be able to bring a lot of those people to Cleveland, have them in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and doing an interview on stage with us, and capturing a lot of that material for the library archives. Because as you think of it, the more distance or time that goes on, that history begins to become more and more history, right? And less of an active culture, although music has changed. It's something different now. And what we try and do at the museum for students of all ages is to connect back to that, to think of where the music came from and how it affects what we listen to today.
So when we talk to the students, I mean, we're doing something educational. You're working in an educational vein. There's some video that we want to roll here, and tell us about the kinds of things that you're doing as we look at these quick cuts of video. If we could roll that video, to tell us what we're looking at here.
There we've got some young kids our preschoolers coming in for Toddler Rock, where music therapists use music to teach literacy. There you see our Rock in the Schools program, K-12, 20,000 kids a year coming to the museum using the music to learn about history, language arts, social studies, science. We see the way the music is a really powerful teaching tool.
So it's more than just listen to the music and catch the rhythm and catch the rhyme. This goes deep.
Now that's important. You got to listen and catch the rhyme, right?
Do I have the rhythm and the rhyme?
That's right. It's got to be exciting. But if you teach young kids about the roots of rock and roll, using these great beats that they love, then you can actually talk to them about the great migration from the south to the north, in the teens. And they get that history lesson while they're hearing the beat.
Let's talk about funding for your programs. So Jason, how do you get the money to do all of these kinds of things?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. A big part, of course, is people who are members of the museum, right? Purchasing a membership, that money helps to go fund the education programs and fund what we do there. But we also get great support from a number of local corporations who help and fund the education. And also, we have a number of different grants from the state and federal grants that help out. So the great part is, again, a lot of the school groups, when they come to things like our K-12 Rock in the Schools, it is free for Northeast Ohio schools. They're coming into the museum and getting to take the class and tour the museum, and they don't have to pay anything for it.
So if a teacher or principal wanted to bring the kids to the school, I mean to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and museum, they could do that.
That's right. That's right. They just have to get there, basically.
They just have to get there. Let me put a phone number on the screen where people can get more information. They're going to stick around with us for another segment here, so we're not going to let them out of the house too quickly. 781-7625, as you see at the bottom of the screen, 216-781-7625, or you can go to rockhall.com and get more information on all of the things that we've been talking about. You've got something called the American Music Masters Series. Tell me a little bit about that.
That's one of the flagship programs of the museum since we opened. Every fall in November, we honor an artist who has changed the shape of not just American music, but in many cases American culture.
Yeah.
We do it for a whole week. We have films, interviews, classes, a conference at Case Western Reserve University, and then we cap it all off with a tribute concert where we tell the story of the artist's life using, a wide range of artists who were influenced by them or were fellow travelers. It's really one of the great highlights of our year, and we now have coming up on 15 years of footage of these events that will live in our library and archives that will help tell the story of the importance of these artists.
Just wonderful stuff. We're talking to Lauren Onke. She's the Vice President of Education and Public Programs, and Jason Hanley, he's the Director of Education, both with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum. We're going to continue our discussion with them. I got to take this break. As the guys who in the Rock and Rollers say, we got to pause for the cause. We're back in a moment. Welcome back to more of Kaleidoscope. We continue our discussion with Dr. Lauren Onke and Jason Hanley, both with the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum in the Education Department. And they're here sharing with us information about the many educational programs offered at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum. And it's all about education, too. I mean, we love the music, but we need to study the music as well, right, Lauren?
That's our mission. And we do that in a traditional classroom setting, but we also do that in conversations with artists and songwriters. We really try to make it accessible to a wide group of people.
Talk a little bit about, Jason, about the Black History Month series.
Yeah, we mentioned a minute ago we were talking about American Music Masters as being one of those big events. Lauren was saying that brings a lot of different events together under one umbrella where we honor somebody. The same is true in February for Black History Month. Each year we honor, usually we pick a style of music or maybe a record label, something from the history again, and go back. In the past we've done things like Stax Records, and we will bring in artists throughout the month. We usually have a Hall of Fame series where one of our inductees comes in to talk about that history. For example, when we did Stax Records, we had Al Bell, who owned the record label for a long time and was the guy who put together Watt Stax out in L.A., and we'll have performances. So you can basically come in throughout the month and get to hear the history of the music from a number of different people who worked there, whether they were performing musicians or people involved in the business of the music. And then you get to hear a concert of that music, too. So it's a whole month of programming, and the majority of it, again, is all free. All you have to do is call the museum or email, and you can make a reservation for one of those events.
Yeah. Tell me, you both work with big rock and roll stars over the years, or the stars who've done this over the decades. When they get named to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, how do they react to that? I mean, is that like a baseball player going to Cooperstown or a football player going to Canton, to the halls of fame there in their respective sports? Does it strike them emotionally?
Yeah, I think it really does, and we've seen that it connects them to the artists that influence them.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the most powerful things you see when people come in for an interview and they see an artifact.
Yeah.
They see someone's guitar, or they remember the artists that they worked with, and they feel like they've joined the club. And when an artist will come in and do an educational event, an interview, they're really giving us their time. They are really donating their time and performance to the museum, and we're so grateful for that. And we try to communicate that we couldn't do what we do in education without their help, and I think they really love being part of that club.
Jason, what's that mean to you when an artist comes in and does an educational event that he or she does not have to do?
Right. I mean, it really is, I think Lauren would agree, it's an amazing experience for us and for the audience to be able to sit there. If we think of this year's Black History Month, we honored Philadelphia International Records out of Philly. And Walter Williams from the OJs came in and did an interview with us. And to get to hear him tell his story, to hear his words, not just to be able to kind of ask him certain things, but to hear him look back on a record like Ship Ahoy that the OJs did and tell the history of how that came together. It really is, I think, for us, an incredibly moving experience. And for the audience that's there in the evening, too. It just makes that history come alive. And especially if it's a record that, you've listened to your whole life and grown up knowing. And again, the music and, as you said, the rhythm and all that. But then you hear these great stories behind it. For me, it's a very emotional experience. I think for the artist often, too.
And it happens live, and the audience responds to that. And that, I think, can only happen here for the people that come in. The audience will sing along to something, and all of a sudden you hear that from the stage. Ronnie Spector, when she was here, actually sang along with her own records, which was, remarkable to hear, and everybody was very moved.
There's an old song that I remember when I was a kid growing up. Rock and roll is here to stay. It will never die. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame takes that. I mean, you take that verbatim, don't you? It's going to be here forever. That's the goal, is to keep this music out there. As Beethoven's music has hung around all these centuries, you want this rock and roll music to hang on, but also the educational piece of it to hang in there as well, correct?
Yeah, the music changed the world. The music brought people together that were kept apart. The music brought mainstream marginal voices into the center of our culture and revolutionized it. And we want to keep telling that story and keep hearing the voices that are out there that are still doing that now.
One of the things I notice as we talk about rock and roll music, I look how mainstream some of it has become. They're actually selling Cadillac cars using rock and roll music underneath, showing conservative guys driving a Cadillac. But it has become part of the world's culture, hasn't it, Jason?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, as Lauren said, it really changed the world, but now it's gone out all over the world. You can look at people around the globe who listen to rock and roll music and been affected by it. And again, at the museum, we really think of rock and roll as a very broad thing. We don't just look at it as the 1950s or the 1960s of the counterculture. We think of rock and roll coming up through everything, even hip-hop. We have hip-hop inductees in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So it is a kind of living, breathing culture. And it goes places, and then it comes back and it goes back out, and it's always developing and adding something new to it. And that, I think, again, like you said, Leon, that's that educational aspect. It teaches us a little bit about who we are, where we came from, but also where it's gone, and we get to see that journey.
That is that educational piece. God, we could talk about this for forever.
Absolutely.
Rock and roll will be here forever. We'll have you back. We'll talk about that. But thank you so much for being on the broadcast.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Lauren Onke, who's the Vice President of Education and Public Programs, and Jason Hanley, who's the Director of Education, both at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and Museum. Thanks so much for being on the broadcast.
Thanks.
Welcome back to more of Kaleidoscope. Marcia Maccabee of the Urban League of Greater Cleveland is with us, always with something good to say. Right, Marcia?
Well, we certainly try, Leon. How are you today?
Okay.
Good. I brought you a gift today.
I appreciate it.
This is the 2010 State of Black America publication that comes out from the National Urban League every year. It's launched at our big event that we do in Washington, D.C. every year, which is our public conference that we do, legislative policy conference in Washington, D.C. And the focus of the 2010 report is jobs responding to the crisis. And so I thought over the next few broadcasts, I'd like to bring a few excerpts and focus on a few points that come out of this, because the Urban League has actually presented a plan for putting America back to work, and it is presented in the State of Black America. And so there are 6 key things. 1 is to fund job creation. 2 is to expand and expedite small business, and you know we have a small business development center at the Urban League of Greater Cleveland. Focusing on green empowerment zones and creating green jobs in that whole industry. Expanding the hiring of housing counselors nationwide to respond to this real crisis that we have in the housing area. Expanding summer youth jobs, and finally creating 100 urban academies across the country within urban leagues to work with young people in summer jobs and helping them to get skills.
So there is a plan.
There is a plan.
And there's a route that we want to take.
Absolutely.
And this is how we, and if we go through these 6 points there, we're well on our way to going down that road, going down that positive route.
Yes, and everyone can get access to a copy of the 2010 State of Black America by going to the Urban League website and accessing the National Urban League website and finding out how they can get a copy.
That'll do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you, everybody. Be well.
Kaleidoscope, a weekly public affairs program brought to you in partnership with the Urban League of Greater Cleveland, Kaleidoscope Magazine, and News Channel 5.